Okay, so we're back here again. This is the fifth episode of the Unnecessary Thoughts podcast. Today is pretty exciting though because we have a guest, a new guest who's never been here before. His name is Michael, and you're gonna have it's me and Peter again, and then we have
What's up?
Michael. So Michael, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, obviously, my name is Michael, and I'm 22 years old. And I think for me, I have a pretty blessed Christian background. I just grew up in a Christian family. You know, my dad, he's an elder at the church, you know, and he's just been taking me and my family to church just like every Sunday. So I think it's just been really blessed. And then right now I'm just currently going to college. If everything goes according to plan, I should be graduating pretty soon. But nice. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, you know, like I think I really like what Peter said in his intro, you know, like I'm just a sinner saved by grace, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. So, Michael, because you're here, we're talking about singles.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm
so,
here.
You got me for the perfect, perfect topic.
So, our topic today, ladies and gentlemen, is singleness. Topics about singleness, stereotypes of single people, and then we're going to kind of go deeper into like specifically Asian stereotypes, and then because we are Hmong, we're going to talk about the culture within the Hmong culture and how singles are viewed in the Hmong culture. So yeah, excited to have this conversation. Do you guys actually think stereotypes are real though for singles? Like in your experience as single men, like young single men, have you guys faced like stereotypes that have happened in real life where people have treated you differently because you were single?
That's a good question.
You want to go here?
I think for me personally, like, I think that the stereotypes have a lot of truth behind them. And yeah, man, if you were like asking me if I felt like I was treated differently by other people because I'm not, like, I'm still single, obviously. I'm not married yet. Yeah, man, that's totally true, dude. Especially, like, within Asian cultures.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like,
sure.
in the Hmong community. There's an aspect that is within the culture that, you know, that, like, being a man, one of the things that it includes is, you know, like, being a husband, being a father. And once you get that, then, like, oh, then you're a man. And if you can't get to that point, like, obviously being single, then, therefore, how can you be a man? You know, how can you be like respected as a man? Like, I don't think you can in like the fullness of, you know, like being an adult and being like it just in the culture, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So definitely, I think a lot of the stereotypes are true, and a lot of like the cultural perspectives that, you know, they place upon single men, you know, I think there's a lot of truth to them. Whether you're Christian or not, you know, I think it's the same for both sides almost.
So have you guys felt like pressure from people to kind of define like, well, have you felt pressure from people within your families or just in general to find a spouse quicker than you want to? Has there been some type of pressure there?
I think for me, just like this idea of like singleness and marriage, I think for sure, like marriage has been something that's been on my radar for a while, and it's something that I've desired myself for a while. Mm-hmm. So I think like the pressure, I'm pretty sure it's probably been there, but I didn't necessarily feel it because it's actually something that I've been in pursuit of for a while. So like that pressure of like, man, like you need to get married, it might have just been me putting it on myself too, you know, of just like, man, like you know, I see like the beauty of what it is inside the Bible, you know, and I see that and I'm like, man, I want that for myself, you know. So I think for sure I definitely you know, like have conversations with my parents. My parents like, man, Michael, you need to you know, you need to step out of your comfort zone a little more. But at the same time, for me, like myself, I'm just like, man, like, dude, I want to get married soon, you know.
Yeah, I think just like just on behalf of like me and Michael, we're still fairly like on the young side, like early 20s and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's like there's more leeway between like, you know, like parents like saying like, oh, like like, oh, you gotta get married and stuff, because like we're not like too old. We're still more on the young side.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the reason why too.
Yeah.
But I know for sure, like definitely if you're like over 25 and stuff.
So that's where you think the age is, like 25 is
Yeah.
when like the pressure starts
I think so.
being packed on. Yeah, I actually think that too. Well, I got married at 21, so in your
Amen,
face,
amen.
young people. No, I got married at 21.
Stop bragging, dude.
Flex, baby. Flexing. But yeah, I got married at 21, so that was pretty young at, I guess, like even an American standard.
Yeah.
Pretty-
I think that's super young,
Yeah.
like especially for American standard. That's really young.
Yeah, even when you look at it, it's like kind of crazy, honestly.
You pretty much had like no single life, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. So no, for me, honestly, singleness. Okay, I started dating my ex-girlfriend at 16. My ex-girlfriend became my ex-girlfriend like 5 more times. And she ended up being my wife. So when you're young, obviously, yeah, when you're young, you kind of you're honestly, you're just stupid. You're just kind of going with the motions, and you're not. I don't think you're not mentally in the place to like making these decisions. Like if I could go back as a single person, I wouldn't have treated like my wife as if she was pretty much just like another, just a piece of meat, basically. That's what it is. And it's like I didn't care enough for her soul to kind of lead her in a better way, because you're 16, you're kind of young and dumb, and you're just kind of like, oh, I think you even felt the pressure. Like I felt the pressure back in the day too, when I was single and I started seeing like my friends getting girlfriends, and it's like, oh my goodness, I need to get along with my friends, and you jump into these relationships which you probably shouldn't have. And yeah, so I mean, for pressure wise, I think you feel pressure young, because you're with people. And thankfully for you guys too, were you guys in like a nurturing environment where it was kind of like, if it happens, it happens, if it doesn't, it doesn't, and you guys like were boys with your boys, and that's just how you guys rolled. But yeah, for me, it was like my guys started getting like girlfriends, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you gotta be cool, so you gotta get a girlfriend, so you start making dumb decisions and doing things you shouldn't have. So yeah, the pressure is real. Pressure comes at a pretty young age. Like it came from me, and yeah, for you guys, man, that's a good age. I think 20s are a good age to start like actively pursuing. But so you guys have felt that pressure, and Michael, for you, so the basics of your like pursuit is biblical, though. It seems like, where you've seen it, you've read it and you've seen it. So that's the joy. That's what you want to pursue. Is just that biblical marriage or that biblical relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I think big shout out to Vadi Bakum for that one. His I think like a lot of people, they kind of just get into relationships for like the reasons of like, oh, like I want to be happy, and like obviously like you should be happy in your relationship. Like if you're not, I think you should probably begin to reevaluate things. But at the end of the day, that's not the reason why we get into relationships, right? Like from a biblical standpoint, like what a marriage is supposed to be is it's supposed to be like a living and breathing representation of the gospel, because it's supposed to reflect, or I guess be a reflection of the relationship that Christ has with his church, And like, I think that it just comes with just like, man, like once you understand the gospel, and once you just like see the beauty in that, and you kind of see that marriage is honestly like an impossible calling on a man and a woman to come together and like be a living and breathing representation of the gospel. Like even though it's impossible, like it's still something so beautiful, and yeah, I think for me, I've always just tried my best to approach it from like a biblical standpoint, because like nowhere in the Bible will you ever find this idea of like dating. Like you'll never find that anywhere, so like for me, I think it's just like, man, like when you do date someone, it's just to like get to know them and see just kind of where they stand, like in their convictions, and then like, man, like if you want to get married like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, do it, like why wait? That's kind of where I'm at,
Yeah, that is pretty much what I tell a lot of people is if you and another girl, or yeah, if you're trying to find a spouse and you guys both have this understanding of what the gospel is and like a foundation of who Christ is and like who we draw our strength from, yeah, if you it's like 6 months later and you find somebody, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I think that would be a beautiful story to actually see play out. Another thing about like singleness in general, like do you guys think because being single, do you think it has like the stigma behind it where you're not worthy to like do certain things, especially within the church also? Like if you're like, when I became married, I got moved up into the older group of people, even though I was 21. Like I was pretty much just upgraded from, I jumped from a youth to single adult to young adult, and then for some other reason, when you get married, you're no longer a young adult. You're just like a adult married couple.
Like a young couple.
Yeah, young couple, and you kind of get cut off from everything. So, do you guys think there's a difference on how you guys are treated as singles in the church? Like, if you're not married, can you hold position? Can you lead, or do you think people view you guys different because you guys aren't married?
Do you want to go, Peter? Or
I think like, yeah, dude, definitely. I think that question really hits home, like for me specifically, and I think one of the things I question is just like in the scriptures where it talks about where Paul talks about, you know, like the qualifications of elders and, you know, of pastors and stuff. Like one of those things is being like a husband of one wife. So obviously like that person's married, he ain't single, and he's got like kids and stuff, you know. So like for me, being a person who is single and wanting to pursue like kind of those positions within the church of, yeah, like maybe like God is calling me to be a pastor and stuff, or to be an elder. The question is then, like, can I do that while I be single? Yeah. While I am single, you know, is that like within the parameters of a person who is like an elder within the church? And I don't know, man. I know like for sure there's a lot of I know a couple of like single guys who are like they're single and they're serving in pastoral ministries, you know, and they have like pastoring jobs and whatnot. But I know like for a lot of single people too who are in that position, it's really difficult for them to find positions where a church will accept them if they're single, you know. Like one of the things they look for is that they have to be married. Oh, wow. And that reason, it could be like just for safety reasons, you know, for the sake of the church, for that person, you know. We don't want that person like stumbling or like that kind of stuff, and we want that man to like have his own wife. But yeah, man, I totally think that is a huge pressure within the church, even for myself. And like me, like wanting to serve and stuff, I do question myself, like, do I then need to, like, should I get married? Yeah. And is it like better for me to be married while in this position, you know? Yeah. Or but it's like something I'm obviously like still like trying to discern. Yeah. And I haven't come up with an answer yet. But yeah, man.
Michael, have you felt the pressures of being single and like kind of stopping you from pursuing different positions within the church, or do you think people have viewed you differently? Have you felt that judgment in your experience?
Man, like I definitely don't want to like misrepresent anyone in like any way, shape, or form. But you know, like for me, I've been serving at Denver Long Alliance Church for I think maybe almost 3 years now.
Like actively serving?
Yeah, like actively serving. And I think at the start it was, for me at least, it was tough. And I think a lot, I mean, like I said, I don't want to misrepresent anyone in any way, shape, or form, you know. But I think a big part of it was because like people like I just wasn't allowed to serve, and I think a lot of it was just because I was single, you know. Like obviously, like that may not be true, you know, but it definitely felt that way, you know. So I think I've definitely felt kind of what Peter's been talking about, because I definitely agree with what Peter's been saying. You know, yeah, like and I've also just heard the same stories that Peter heard too, you know, of just like single men looking to become pastors of different churches, and those churches just like saying no because of the, you know, like the qualifications that we see inside the Bible. You know, even though I think that if we were to go and do like a word study of those passages, I don't think that those passages necessarily require you to have a wife, you know.
Yeah. So did Paul have a wife?
No.
Paul the apostle? Yeah.
Not in his ministry days.
Yeah. I like one of the issues like I had when I was growing up was kind of fixating on that idea of like, yo, you ain't got a wife, you can't pastor, you can't, how can you lead a church without a wife? So even I have fallen into that, where I've looked at somebody single, and you know they may be talented in preaching the word and, you know, building relationships with their congregation, but they didn't have a wife, and I held that against them as if like if you don't have a wife, then you can't spread the gospel. And like that's such a toxic view though.
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
Is that I guess if you could encourage people out there, would you, like, what would you say in terms of that aspect itself? Like how do you approach that when you're trying to dispel that stereotype of you have to be married to have to be able to hold these positions? Like what would you encourage people who have that mindset?
There's like a lot of things that I think about, just like when I think about like whether the leaders of a church would allow someone to serve or not, you know, because at the end of the day, these leaders, the Bible's really clear, you know, they're going to be held accountable to God one day for the souls of all the people that they were watching over, you know? So like part of me is like, man, like I think that these leaders are just doing their job, you know, by saying that, you know, maybe you shouldn't serve yet, you know? And so I think that we also have to look at it like that as well. But I think part of it too is, you know, like us as single people, are we carrying ourselves in such a way that it shows that we are being good stewards of what God has given us, you know? Because I think it's one thing to want to serve, but it's another thing to show that you can actually serve, you know? Like I think for me, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think one of the reasons why it was a lot easier for me to serve this year was just because like the leaders of Denver Hmong have seen that, like, okay, yeah, this guy actually like really wants to serve, you know, and he really wants to put himself in positions to learn and to grow and to minister to our young people, you know? Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things that you need to think about. For sure. Like I am not like upset with like the leaders of Denver Hmong Alliance Church at all, you know, because I look at it from that perspective of like, man, like these people, like one day before the judgment seat of God, you know, they were going to have to give an account for how they led Denver Hmong Alliance Church, you know, and I want to do my best to make it easy for them on that day, you know. But yeah, like if you're single and you want to serve the church, that's awesome, you know, like continue to pursue that, but also just like do things to show the leaders of your church that, man, like I want to do this and I can do this, you know.
Yeah, I think like something I would add to is just in kind of like dispelling this cloud over like being single, being married, in ministry and stuff. I would ask then, like, what is the purpose of marriage, therefore, and what is it accomplishing in your life? And I think me and Mako would agree that the purpose for like God marrying two people together is that they may be sanctified in one another, you know. Amen. And they may grow in grace for one another and learn to, you know, like endure in love with one another. And I think that's why, you know, marriage is so great and so valued, is because it teaches you those kind of lessons. But that doesn't mean like those lessons can't be learned outside of, you know, marriage. Yeah. And being single, like definitely God can teach you those lessons as well, and you can still be sanctified in the word as well, not being married while you're being single. And therefore, you know, I think like that individual, like, yeah, he can lead, he can serve, and he can hold those positions within the church, although like he's not like he's not married.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally okay.
All right. I think if there's one thing we've learned is, ladies, we got two single guys over here. Yeah. So they seem to have a very good head on their heads. On top of like, let's go to a few of the struggles that single people have kind of faced. If you guys have faced this, like I think the biggest struggle for sure as a single person is loneliness. So I guess since we're talking about being single and your experiences with being single, you know, this loneliness, how do we navigate that area? Like what would you tell to people about the struggles that you guys have felt? Like what's your biggest struggle as a single person that you guys have faced?
I gotta think about this one.
I guess for me, like when I was young, when the biggest struggle I faced when I was single was just not being man enough, I guess. Like there's such a going back, it's just like there's such like if you do not have a girl, then you are pretty much not man enough to take care of anything. So there was a lot of like my struggle was with I guess identity of I need this person to make me feel better about myself,
to make me like worthy.
To make me worthy. So like that was one of my biggest struggles growing up, and I'm like a extreme introvert. So like the unfortunate thing, like if I could go back, I would totally redo everything. But yeah, I was if only I was extreme introvert too. So I was not pursuing my wife. It was more her pursuing me than anything.
Hey man, you got lucky, dude. I
got lucky, and I tell people all this. I tell people all the time, like, yo, check this out. If you do not marry young, that sucks for you because it's gonna get harder and harder and harder. So I guess one of the struggles, like on top of that too, one of the struggles thing too, like I've observed from like single people is, and I guess not just single people, but the older that men get. So for some of the reason, like men, I think in the Hmong culture, like men, we're so like we're prideful and we have like ambitions when we're growing up through this, like when we're in high school to college, like we have this ambition, we're just going after stuff. And then when real life starts kicking our butt and like we start humbling ourselves, like, yo, we're not as cool as we used to think we were. So then our standard for women, it drops. So when the older we get, we're just going to start looking for different types of women to, you know, hey, can you be my girlfriend? Hey, can you be my wife? But then, like, the opposite, I think, is true for women, where women, they take a little bit longer to progress in life. So while they're in high school and college, they're like so confused about life, but then they start accomplishing things. They start graduating from college, or they start doing things, and their standard for men rise up, and the men can't rise up to that standard. In the Hmong culture specifically, that's what I've seen is, like, the men just kind of fall off, and they kind of, you know, they're just chilling with their parents while the women are out there doing things in life. So then they start, you know, higher standards when they grow older, and men typically just, you know, life hits us and it hits us hard and we start being humbled. And I got lucky, for sure. I got lucky because my wife pursued me for pretty much the whole relationship. So I like from 16, we had so many, like 16 to like 20, we had so many ups and downs, and then finally got married at 21. But yeah, for the most part, it was her like actively pursuing me, and so I'm not man enough. So that my struggle is true. But yeah, it's been like
that's a gift from God. Yeah, that's how you know.
So yeah, it's been a humbling experience just to acknowledge that my wife was like, she pursued, and you know the struggles of what I've experienced is just like, yeah, she being introverted, being passive aggressive, you know, kind of being raised by my mom most of the time. So it was like, I didn't understand what to do. So, you know, blessed for sure to have my wife kind of pursue me and kind of be that, like, she's introverted too, but she's more extrovert at certain times. But yeah, she definitely pursued me. So yeah, my struggles were just the idea of what a man is, and I guess I'm not a man. No, but yeah, so yeah, if you guys have had time to think, like, what's a struggle that you guys have faced?
I got something.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I think just like these are just kind of my unnecessary thoughts, but like going back to what you said about like struggling with loneliness in my time being single and stuff, dude, I can remember for sure, like probably like my my late teens, like 17 to like 21ish and stuff. Dude, honestly, like I didn't even feel like any aspect of loneliness though. I think it was because legit, like I had my boys and like,
Yeah.
dude, man, we were all single and like we kind of just like doing life together and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like I kind of had no desire, no need, for any sort of like other kind of like relationship, like you know like a like although like I pictured myself like, oh yeah, I could see myself married, like oh yeah, I could like that would be cool, like I'm down with that, you know, but
Yeah.
like it was like no part of my desires like in my heart, you know. Like it wasn't until after I learned about, you know, like what the scripture says about marriage and what like how it upholds marriage and just like, you know, like the things that marriage does within you as a believer, the sanctifications that it brings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, man, like I want to get married, you know, like, and it was because like not solely that, because I was like lonely and like I wanted like a friend and stuff, but like, man, I just wanted to like, I wanted to grow in Christ in that way through marriage. And that's what like, you know, like birthed in me a desire for marriage. But I wasn't feeling like super like lonely and stuff. I wasn't like sad that I was single out, because like
It was more like a, like once you started getting it, like biblical foundations, it was more of like a goal to obtain, or something like something to chase after.
yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely, yeah, just definitely like it was a desire that I wanted to have, you know, like, to be married. Yeah, man. And being single, like when I was single, like I wasn't like down and pouting about like being single though, because it didn't even bother me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know why, but I think that was
good.
just kind of the person I was.
Yeah.
Like we said last week, man, I was a loner. Dude. I was
true.
used to it. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it didn't matter too much to me though.
Man, I think for me, I think the feelings of loneliness, I would say, have only cropped up in like the recent years for me. I think a lot of it was just because same reason for what Peter said, you know, like we had our group of boys that
That's
we ran
true,
with,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So like this idea of like, man, like I need to be with like a girl, it was just like never on my mind, just until like probably maybe around, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I know that, you know, there was a season of life that happened to me just like, man, I don't even know how long ago, maybe like 5 years ago, maybe around that time, when, you know, just a lot of my close friends, they started to just enter into different seasons of life, you know, like praise God for that, you know, like I am not bitter about that at all, you know, like friends just had to move away, and, you know, like as a result, it was just kind of just me and just me doing my own thing again, you know, and it's just like all by myself. And like that's kind of like when like these feelings of loneliness definitely started to come up, you know. So I definitely feel like the struggle, just like when it comes to loneliness, you know. And I think the best way that we could actually just like combat like loneliness is to know that, like, I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead to future topics or not.
Go ahead.
But just to know that, like, man, like these relationships are good things that God gives us as gifts, but they in and of themselves are not the end, you know.
Yeah.
Like that feeling of loneliness like will not be satisfied by a spouse.
Yeah.
But instead it'll be satisfied, you know, in the work and person of Jesus, you know, and that's what truly satisfies the soul. And that's why I love like just the way that John starts off his gospel, you know, he just like paints for us this picture that like, man, like in Jesus is life, right? And like that life is not found anywhere else, you know, and just like understanding that, but like just to be like extremely practical too though, just like put yourself in situations to just get to know people, you know. And I think that helps out a lot. For me, I definitely would consider myself an introvert for sure, but you know, like
3 introverts right here.
yeah, I think so. I think so. But you know, like ever since I started serving in the church, I definitely have noticed myself just becoming a little more social. Yeah. And I think a big part of it too is just me like just telling myself, dude, like get over yourself a little bit, you know? Yeah, like
that might be it, yeah.
Yeah, like get over yourself a little bit and just like go out there and just like talk to people, meet people, you know. And I think that does definitely help out a lot. And then just like having 1 or 2 just really close friends that you could just do life with, you know. Yeah. Where you could just like, man, like this person, man, I could tell this person anything, and we just have like that deep relationship, I think that will definitely help out. But also just knowing that like what I said earlier, the only relationship that will satisfy that loneliness is a relationship with Jesus,
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. On top of that too, like, do you guys think when people start pursuing, they must have a misunderstanding of like what a pursuit of a spouse is? Do you think people should pursue like, for you guys, do you guys think you should pursue a girl to be a girlfriend / wife, or should you pursue another girl because you want to be a friend, and in hopes of that friendship it grows to something bigger? Do you think people have misconceptions on that? It's just they're going into a situation where they see a girl and they're like, I'm going to pursue that girl to be my girlfriend, rather than pursuing that girl to be a friend, hoping for something more than that. Do you think that would help ease a lot of like the, I guess, negative relationships that people get themselves into?
I definitely like the kind of approach that you said with the second option, where you just like, man, just like be friends with a lot of people, and like, man, like pray, obviously, and like if God opens up the door, like awesome, like you guys already have a friendship, you know, and because I think that when we go into these relationships, with like, man, like, dude, this person's gonna be my wife, like we put so much expectation on this person that it puts a weight on their shoulders and it crushes them. But instead, if we just go into these relationships like, man, like this person's cool, let me just get to know them as a friend, and let me pray and ask God to open up the door, and if he does, great. So that's definitely the way that I would kind of answer that.
I think like when you ask that kind of question, the question like we're really asking ourselves is like how intimate should we be with those people that we pursue, and that's where a lot of guys, they come to like other guys and they ask questions like, oh, like should I take her out, or like is that too much, or like should I just be friends, or like what if we're just friends forever? They don't know where this intimacy, like how far to take it, where it will lead and stuff. For me personally, like whenever like guys like ask me those kind of questions, what I would tell them is just basically like, man, just like honestly, like pursue that friendship and pursue that brotherly, Christ-centered intimacy between you and that person, and and just let it grow, let it take off from there. If it doesn't go nowhere, then like it doesn't go nowhere. If it does, then like keep nurturing it and stuff, but yeah, I think like I think people overthink when they try to like when they ask themselves that, they're just kind of overthinking on themselves and doing an injustice upon themselves, when they would rather, like, I think that they should just like again, pursue that brotherly intimacy. And I think that just solves your problems. Like, you don't gotta think about like, oh, like yeah, there are boundaries that like, oh, I can't cross this line of like doing that because like people might think this, people might think that, or like that would mean that's something that like a courting couple does, a dating couple does, and we're not that, therefore like we're not gonna do that, or something like that. Like it's good to be like mindful of those things, but yeah, man, I think y'all just thinking too much, man.
Yeah, I think that was good. Michael, you brought up a good point of putting these expectations on like like females who maybe they're not even looking for like a relationship, but you've already put that expectation on them, so you have like all these like this energy, this negative energy if things don't go your way, and you're putting all this blame on the female because you put this unnecessary burden on their back. That's a good point. And going after people with this brotherly, Christ-like relationship, and not overthinking that boundaries, like that all makes logical sense when you guys say that to me right now. So since we've talked about like a few of the struggles, like what singleness has so many things to offer. And for me personally, when I tell people all the time, like I've been married for 7 years, and every decision I make has to be bounced back with my wife. Like I always have to, even if it's a simple, hey, I'm gonna go play basketball at the park, for me in my view, like to be selfish is just to say I'm gonna go play and not ask her, even though we have 3 kids. So that, like, I'm not putting in her, like, in perspective that she has to deal with 3 kids, she has to deal with anything else at home, and if I don't ask her, then there could be trouble that just kind of brewing. So, like, for me as a married man, I have to ask pretty much permission, but at the same time, it's not permission, but it's just being selfless and knowing that she has her needs too. So for me as a married guy, you always have to, bounce back ideas with your wife, and you also have to think about your kids all the time. Like, everything that I do, I weigh it. Is it worth it to do this against time away from my kids? And it's a constant battle between me and having those fights internally of what's worth it, what's not worth it. So I can't just, like, if I watch like an epic movie and I feel like inspired, I can't just be like, yo, I'm joining the Marines, I'm gonna go and fight like all these bad people. So I can't do that. But for like single people, I always tell you answer to yourself pretty much. You are the one who can stop or do whatever you want to do. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits to being single. Would you guys agree with that? It's just you guys don't have to ask for permission from anybody. It's just you guys can take care of things. If you feel called to, like, you can devote yourself to Christ 100% without having to worry about anything. So would you say that is like one of the biggest benefits of being single?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably a big one. Yeah, kind of like what you said. Like, man, like if a situation comes up where, like, oh man, like my church, they're fundraising and they want people for like a short-term mission trip. Boom, you're single, you just sign up. Yo. No questions asked, because you could just go and you could just do it,
Uh-huh.
But if you have a wife, if you have a spouse, then you have to talk to them and be like, okay, so is this something that we can do? And like Paul is really clear about that, just like in the scriptures, 1 Corinthians 7, where he kind of just talks about singleness, and he's like, man, like, if you're single, like, you can be solely devoted to God, and that's something that is just like a blessing, like that's a gift in and of itself,
Yeah, man. I totally agree, and I feel like I'm just kind of echoing, but like, yeah, I think being a married man, you kind of have these biblical priorities that you have to uphold in order to like fulfill your role as a man and like within your family. But if you're single, like, those are just kind of out the window,
Yeah.
And you're at the whim of like yourself. You're at the whim of the Lord, and you have like so much freedom. I totally agree. Like, the biggest benefit to being single is the freedom that person has to make his decisions, what he wants in life, what he wants to do. Because it's all like he don't got to watch out for no one,
Yeah.
You don't got to provide for no one. So. Yeah, man, it's a huge advantage for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, for sure, like, for those listening, for sure, there's, like, marriage is amazing, but marriage is extremely hard at the same time. It's something that you always have to work at every single day. It's not something where you get married and, wow, this is it. Every single day is a pursuit of your spouse, like, every single day. And you're always trying to go after that spouse, and you have to understand their feelings, because it's, I think Michael brought this up earlier, but it's 2 imperfect people becoming one. Like, obviously that's not going to work out. It's an imperfect relationship, which is why the foundation upon Christ is so vitally important, to be able to fall back on. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect. One of the struggles I had was trying to make my wife into somebody that I wanted her to be, not who she was already, and just kind of bouncing off of her strengths and her understanding her weaknesses. So yeah, being married it's hard because of that aspect. Is you're always gonna have to think about that other person, while being single, the biggest benefit is you can think about yourself. You can think about, hey, what can I do to help other people out, and I don't have to ask anybody permission. And so on top of that too, we're gonna go into like perspectives from the Bible. Singleness is not a curse, is it? What is singleness? So is it a gift from God? And I think it is pretty clear that it is absolutely a gift from God.
Yeah, I think I would have to just agree with that one for sure. Yeah, kind of like I said in 1 Corinthians 7, it's the passage of singleness, you know, the passage every Christian skips over.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah, like Paul, like just in verse 7, he just says that, like, man, like, I wish that all were as myself, as I myself am, you know. And he's kind of talking about his singleness. And after that, he just says, but each has his own gift from God, you know. So he's saying that, like, man, like, this singleness is a gift, but like if you're married, that's also a gift too.
Yeah.
You know, so like there's, even though we've been talking about singleness and marriage, like both things are good things from God, and both things are gifts, you know.
Man, you stole what I was about to say, man. I'm just kidding. Yeah, dude, I just totally agree. I think there's definitely like an aspect of like our thinking, even myself, when I view myself as like being a single person and like feeling like this, like, oh, like I'm unworthy and stuff, and like I'm not as godly in my singleness. But you know, like I think the scripture is clear that like as much as marriage is a gift as well, like singleness, that is like a gift from God as well. And when like we ought to steward it well, and like just like how we live and stuff. But it's like so when like we see like single people like in the church and like whatnot, like we shouldn't like demean them or devalue them because like they're that way. Like yeah, man, we gotta understand like it's a gift from the Lord. Yeah, dude, I totally agree.
Yeah. So let's throw in like who we are, because we are Hmong. Like I've seen it's a tremendous like pressure on even females. Like females, obviously they have their set of lists, and I don't think we can kind of talk about it because we're not females. So
I mean, it's 2019. Just kidding.
that's true.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
But yeah, I mean, being Hmong, there's been like this pressure on a lot of young men who feel like, hey, if I don't hit a certain, like if I hit like 35, then I'm going overseas, and they're gonna find a wife that way. But there's like this negative pressure on young men to, I guess we can talk about like giving advice to people. There's pressure of timelines of what you have to hit. Like if you're 35, there's just no timeline for marriage, I don't feel like. And I think the pressure in the Hmong culture is like you have to be married at a certain age, or yeah, it's just like you lose face, and there's just a lot of negativity around that. So like what would be your advice to people in terms of like timelines? For you guys, what is your timeline? What do you guys like, or yeah, what's your timeline? What are you guys thinking is going to happen in the next couple of years? Are you guys going to actively pursue? Or are you guys going to like, what's an advice to give for guys, or to not even care about it? Like what would you say?
It's kind of funny that we're kind of talking about timelines now.
That's
because right. I remember actually on the way here, you know, I was
Oh yeah, we're talking about your timeline.
we were kind of talking about my timeline a little bit, you know. And I think I was just telling Peter, you know, in the car here, you know, if everything goes according to plan, you know, like next year, I'll be off to like if everything goes according to plan, I'll graduate next year. After the summer of next year, I'll graduate my undergrad, and then in that fall semester, I'll be off going to seminary, you know.
Oh wow.
And I was telling Peter, hopefully by then I'll have a fiance or something, you know. But yeah, so it's kind of funny that we're talking about timelines now. But yeah, I definitely think that there are like these stigmas that you kind of talked about like, man, like if you're 30 or like 35, you got to be married, you know. And man, like I don't know, it's really tough for me to give advice on this one just because I'm still so young, you know, and I haven't really walked through that. But
and I think that's the point of it is like you're so young, like young people, you are so young, like 30 35 is young.
Yeah, that's still pretty young.
Yeah, so like I guess that is part of like the advice is like you're young, stop viewing life as if like it stops at 23. Like if you look at life through the like bigger spectrum of life again, it's with modern medical like technology, you can live up to 65, God willing. But yeah, just stop looking at your life as if this is it, that's it.
Yeah, I think like just on the idea of like timelines for marriage and stuff. Me personally, I think that like the standard by which we kind of gauge whether or not a person should be married is not age. Age does play a part in a person's like maturity and a person's, readiness to be, called to that position. Like definitely like almost like a higher calling, that's not dependent upon age though.
Yeah.
And I think the faster, the sooner we realize that, like the better off those single people will be, because like oftentimes I truly think that, they just kind of beat themselves up over it, because, they're trying to meet like those timelines, they're trying to meet those expectations and stuff. And the more and the more and the more and the more that they fail, that just kind of degrades like, them as a person and like, like their value and stuff. So, just getting away from that sort of like thinking, I think like, the healthier we will be.
Yeah.
And for sure, like, what else can we do but just, trust in the Lord's provisions. And, that goes for everything that we have, including marriage. If God has put the desire in you to be married, like I fully believe he's going to fulfill that desire. And it's just a matter of waiting on him. And just looking to the Lord. That doesn't mean we just kind of sit down and just kind of like, hey, like where my girl's at or something. Like
break through this door.
Like where you at? Like
be a good steward. Be a good steward.
Yeah, for sure. Like it means like putting yourself out there if you have that desire. Not being too shameful of it,
Yeah.
I know like like
do it. Just show it.
No, man, like man, it's okay to like, like promote yourself, I think. That you're single, that you're available. I think people got like a bad stigma, like man, that's this dude like over here, or this girl
desperate
over here,
or
like,
something, yeah.
like man, he's desperate.
Yeah,
This dude's just desperate and stuff. Like he looks like that's kind of shameful, but man, dude, just like take a step back and like, man, that guy knows what he wants. If he like that's the kind of person he is, like that's cool. But definitely we shouldn't put a timeline on it. Don't put a timeline on it, but actively, pursue those desires. And I think in God's timing, like put your trust in God and His timing and His provisions. Like it'll work out. But
yeah, that's a good point. You hit on quite a bit of like advices in that. It's just do not put a timeline on it, and then you must actively pursue. Like don't be like me and let your girl come to you. But if you're like, I mean, I guess it works if the girl is like,
it's a gift, man.
It's a good thing. So just understand that, like, I guess not having those expectations again. You have to really actively pursue it. Like if you actually want it, you're gonna have to break out of your comfort zone. Eventually, you're gonna have to do things that just do not make sense for to be able to pursue that again. Pursue that friendship, and hopefully that can be something more than friendship. With social media nowadays too, for sure. Like broadcasting yourself, it does have a pretty like negative desperation feel to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there and I know we joke about it too, but like if that is who you are, and you're other than just posting maybe like on Twitter or something saying, hey, I'm single, I'm ready to mingle, but you're actively behind the scenes, you're actively pursuing those friendships, and hopefully something will happen. You're not playing Fortnite for like, but honestly, like Ninja has a wife, so if Ninja can get a wife, you guys can get a wife. Because I think in that active pursuit, like if you're being pursued, if you're pursuing God first, God can take you so many places. Like if you're pursuing, like not saying it's gonna happen, but if let's say you become a missionary or something, you're gonna be placed in a place where you don't know anybody, so you're gonna have to build those relationships. You're gonna have to meet different people, and God willing, if there's a relationship that develops more than a friendship, then man, that's just blessings on you. So one of the biggest things that we just have to tell all you people who are listening is just actively pursue it if you actually want it. Like you cannot be passive in terms of just sitting at home thinking that your spouse is gonna break down the door and come to you and drag you out and you guys are married. So you have to actively pursue it. And Michael, could you kind of clarify, well not clarify, but can you kind of restate this again, where what is our ultimate satisfaction? Where does it come from? Can it come from a spouse? can it come from not being single?
I think I didn't want to do like an exegesis of like John chapter 1 verses like 1 through 4, but
He knows it.
it's a place that's pretty near and dear to my heart, honestly. But yeah, like I think we have to understand that like our ultimate satisfaction comes from Christ, you know, because if we're trying to look for it in like a relationship with someone else, you know, whether it's romantic or not, you know, maybe you're just rolling with your group of friends and you're hoping that your relationship you have with your buddies is going to satisfy you, you know, like you put a weight on their shoulders that will crush them, you know, because you kind of put expectations on them that they can't fulfill, you know, and because like our hearts, they want like something that will like satisfy them for like the long term, you know. I think it was like Augustine said that, like he said something along the lines of like our hearts are restless until they rest in Christ, you know. And just like knowing that that, you know, like I think if we find our satisfaction in Christ, then we'll be okay, you know, because I mean like the gospel never promises us that we'll be successful people or that we'll be married if we come to believe Jesus, you know. Like that is the prosperity gospel, and like that is something that I absolutely will teach against, you know. This idea that like, man, like once I come to believe Jesus, then everything in my life will go right. No, like actually the good news of the gospel is that when we come to believe the gospel, you know, like Christ is enough for us, you know. Like Christ will make himself known to be enough for us if we choose to put our faith and believe in him, you know. And just understanding that, you know, because I think that if we don't understand that, then that's when, you know, like idolatry starts to set in, you know. We're like I said, you know, we begin to put expectations on people, and it crushes them, you know, because they can't fulfill it. Just recently, I was just kind of going through my own situation just recently, and man, like kind of the anxiety and everything that I was going through just kind of revealed to me that, man, like I was trying to find satisfaction in like a relationship, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, like I was reminded that you'll only be truly satisfied in Christ, you know. Like I was like anxious to the point where like I couldn't enjoy doing the things that I loved, you know. Like I couldn't enjoy food, I couldn't enjoy doing my hobbies, you know, like playing video games and just chilling with friends anymore, you know. And I was just like, I gotta chill out, you know, like I gotta chill out. And I think that it's very clear, like just from like the way I was feeling, that like, man, like this has become an idol in my life, you know. And that's what happens when you know, like we try to place something on the throne of God, you know?
Yeah, dude, just along with that though, like Siachi being someone in our like talk group right now, like you're obviously married, and Michael, single guy. I know, definitely someone who has a desire for marriage, who wants to be married. Me, I'm the single guy, but for me personally right now, there is no desire within me for marriage. I think it only magnifies and highlights the truth of, you know, what Michael was saying. It's not in these relationships that we have. It's not in marriage. It's not in nothing else, you know. It's in the person of Jesus Christ, and in that intimacy, in that friendship, in that, you know, that like finding that fulfillment, that joy in Christ, that's gonna fulfill us. You know, it might, you know, like marriage is a good thing. It's a gift from God, and like he gives it to those that he pleases, but it's not like the ends and the, you know,
end all be all.
The end all, the be all of like life. Yeah, man, a lot of single people out there repping to be single. Yeah. So yeah, man,
that's a great way to kind of wrap it up. Whether you are single or if you're married, it does not matter. Singleness is a gift from God. Marriage is a gift from God. Neither can be fulfilled or satisfied without Jesus Christ, and that is the end. I think that's the end thing that we want to tell all of you guys. Like, regardless of your walks in life, like what Peter said, some are actively pursuing marriage, some are not.
Yep.
Like some people are married, some people are dissatisfied in their marriage, and all these certain things. But at the end of the day, it is Christ Himself who satisfies anything and everything. So, guys, thank you for pretty much opening up your hearts. I mean, we don't have these conversations. I don't feel like we have these conversations in the open a lot, especially coming from single young men like you guys. Thank you for opening up your hearts and just kind of, from your side of how things are going. You guys brought in a lot of like information. So I hope that those who are listening right now take this information and, use it to help you guys and understand that, life is a journey, and, the only satisfaction is in Christ. So Michael, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
So me and Peter here, we brought in Michael. Hopefully Michael will come onto the podcast a lot more. He has a lot of information to give us.
I would be more than happy to be a regular.
And then we got some topics with Michael. I've been discussing with him some politics and stuff.
Let's go. But we will save those for another day. So thank you guys. Any closing remarks from you guys?
I just want to say that singleness is a gift as equally as marriages.
I got nothing. I'm good.
Perfect. All right, so we will see you guys on the next episode of the Unnecessary Thoughts podcast. Thank you for joining in. If you guys have any comments, make sure you guys write them down below or send us a message and we can talk about it. If you guys have your own experiences, feel free to just leave it down in the comment below also. We love you guys. For those who are listening, please just
we love you.
Carry on with your day. Listen to us while you're driving. We will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.